Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm EG11 and this is going to be my first somewhat informative video in my series on what it takes to raise emus. So for this episode, my main goal is for the viewer to answer the question, if you're going to be growing emus, what's going to be your goal and how will that shape your process, especially when they're young like mine are right here. To get you started with a little bit of emu facts, they're large flightless birds from Australia. Their relatives are the ostrich, the cassowary, the rhea, which are the other four largest birds in the world, as well as the kiwi, which is a very tiny bird from New Zealand. In the 90s, there was a large ostrich and emu growing fad in the United States, which died off within the decade due to the fact that people realized that, well, for most uses, cows are just better. Later, in the mid-2000s, India and many Indian farmers fell prey to get-rich-quick schemes centered around selling emus to inexperienced farmers for a large markup, promising that they were much easier to grow than cows. And due to religious, situations in India, cows are seen as less desirable for widespread consumption. So that also fell apart in the 2010s. But there is still a larger population of emus in India to this day. Worldwide, it's estimated there's around 630,000 emus. 600,000 of these are in Australia. Most of those are wild. 13,000 of them are in the United States. There's still a, pretty small, but still reasonably large emu, as livestock program, as sort of like an exotic meat. And some people just have them for pets. So why did I decide to get emus, and why might the viewer decide to get emus? I got the emus kind of for two different reasons. First, I thought they'd make a cool pet. But also, emus produce eggs, and rather large ones at that. And seeing as I like kind of unique, weird things, I thought this was going to be a good fit for me. So if you're thinking of getting emus as pets, there is a couple of, or in general, there's a couple of caveats I think I should bring up first. As you may know, being as large as they are, you can't just keep an emu in a regular backyard. So if you've got a house on 1 acre of land, you really shouldn't consider getting emus, as they require basically 1 acre by themselves. Second, and this applies to pets in general, make sure that your pets will be happy. I have 2 emus not only because I want eggs, but because I won't be able to see the emus all day, so they need a buddy to hang out with. And once they get really big, I don't think the chickens will make, adequate companionship for the emus. In addition, so if you've got enough land, and if you're okay with getting 2 emus, next thing you gotta consider, emus compared to other pets, like let's say a dog, would be, about the same size, not the same height, but about the same footprint. Dogs are have been bred for thousands of years to be very friendly to humans, whereas emus have not. So you're not going to get the same kind of companionship from one of these birds than you would from a canine. Emus shouldn't really be taken inside the house like a dog might be. First of all, they're very large birds, so if they do decide to relieve themselves on your carpet, it's going to be a horrid mess. And they've got very large claws, which could damage flooring. Also, they're very curious, and they will tear apart your house to peck at everything they can get their beak on. I say this, however, in comparison to other farm birds, chickens and ducks and turkeys, actually I'd say they're about the same amount as turkeys. They're very playful. They'll roll over, not on command, I haven't trained them yet. They'll jump up and down. You can see this in videos across the internet. They're rather playful as a part of their big size. So you might find them more entertaining to look at than smaller birds. The second use case that I kind of have in mind is light production. So this would be like non-invasive stuff, collecting their eggs, collecting shed feathers, and like tourism for petting zoos. Emus, they'll make between 20 and 40 eggs per year. Each of these eggs will be the size of 8 to 10 chicken eggs. I've heard that they taste about the same but a little creamier. They have a very hard, durable shell, which you really need to put some muscle into breaking. And what this means is that you can drill a hole in the bottom, drain the egg out, and then save the shell just to look at and be cool. Or you can, if you're an artist type, you can carve it. And you can find examples of that on the internet. The feathers emus shed are very long and thin and have a very distinct look. You could, do art projects, put one in the band of your hat or such, but you won't be getting any significant volume. And as they're shed feathers, they might not be in the best condition. I do not envision myself scouring my emu pasture to find dropped feathers to sell to people. As far as petting zoos go, emus, I'd say, are probably going to be pretty good. They're not going to be your usual petting zoo material, as they're kind of like a semi-exotic animal. They can be pet, as you see I'm in here right now. Of course, these are chicks, so they're still small. And as they get bigger, of course, they may mellow down and become startled less easily, but they'll also become more dangerous as they can kick, so you might need to just keep them behind a fence unless you've got some really big, experienced people, maybe with safety glasses, who want to go in and pet them. As I say this, they are a more attractive option than ostriches. Ostriches will get several times as heavy and kick with several times as much force, whereas an emu kick may put you in the hospital if it hits you in the right spot. An ostrich kick can kill you instantly. As a emu farmer I visited told me, it takes 3 people to harvest an ostrich egg, 1 to distract the bird, 1 to grab the egg, and a 3rd person standing next to him with a shotgun in case something goes wrong. And then last but not least, for heavy production, this is going to be invasive harvesting. So selling emu chicks. A special consideration here will be you'll want to get your emu chicks from different breeders, so you have a wide genetic, so you don't run into inbreeding issues. Of course, you're also going to need to put a lot more of work into your infrastructure. For pets and light production, you might only have 1 or 2, maybe up to 6 or 10 emus, depending on the size of your setup. So right now, I've just got this cage set up in the hen house we have, and once these emus are grown up, we'll take it down, or we'll use it for like turkey or chicks from chickens. So I don't need any special buildings, but if you're going into like full production, you're going to need to start planning out really early, and then make like an actual building to specialized for emus. You may also want to consider getting some of the rarer colors of emu chicks. These guys are both standard colored emus. There's a 25% chance for them to make a blonde colored emu, and a 25% chance for 2 blonde emus to get a white emu. Of course, as you go up in rarity, much like any video game creature, the price goes up. So you may want to consider investing into a good number of blonde emus so you get a large number of white emus as chicks that you can then sell to people looking for the higher price. The next thing you'll get from heavy production is butchering your emus for meat. Emu meat, I've actually made some emu steaks myself. It is a red meat, so unlike chicken and turkey and duck, it will be more like a cow, or venison is probably the closest. It is a red meat. It is very lean, low percentage of fat. As far as taste, I don't have the strongest tongue, but to me, it kind of tasted like half beef, half goat. As far as the nutritional benefits of emu meat that you can advertise, there is research done by the American Emu Association, which states or reads that emu meat has very high nutrients like iron and everything else, in particular vitamin K2, which helps fix calcium in humans, which is a kind of a rare thing. So it might be a good idea to try emu meat if you want. But emus grow to around 150 pounds, and after that, I don't think I ever saw a figure on exactly how much meat you get off of a bird that big, but of course, you know, it's going to be less than a cow, so emu meat will be more expensive than beef. But since it is kind of a rare meat, you might factor in you're going to be one of the only suppliers in your area. The emu farm I visited that does their own butchering, they have a deal set up with a local bar where they sell emu burger to them. And that keeps them going. And they also sell locally as like a little drive-up farmer's market. In addition to their meat, you know, they've got giant legs. You can use their leg bones for soup. They've got long necks. You can use that for stew. I won't be grinding these fellas up, though. Emu leather. So you can, in fact, get leather off of these guys. It's a lot harder than leather from cows or anything else, which is one of the reasons why the American emu economy in the 90s fell, is because it takes a lot of work to extract leather from them. However, the leather is, you know, pretty unique, especially the leg leather was used for like wallets and such. It's got a very unique texture. Feathers. If you're butchering your emus, you can of course collect all the feathers at once and sell them to various consumers of that. As I said in my previous video, the farm that I went to sells their feathers to General Motors, who uses them to make big dust brushes in their factories. Due to the large amount of oil in the emu feathers, it helps keep static electricity down as opposed to using fabric brush. Emu oil. So emus on their back here, they've got a large pad of fat, which you can render into oil. This oil, of course, has a lot of that vitamin K2 as well. It can also be turned into like a pill or a medication cream. The cream I've seen advertised as an anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, anti-itch kind of deal. I swear at one point I saw one in my local grocery store supermarket, a little jar of it, but I haven't been able to find it since. If you are looking into the production of this oil, the farm I visited said all oil needs to be sent to a facility out of state to get purified. But those are the various ways in which, if you're going the whole 9 yards, you can utilize basically the whole bird. I've also heard it said that people use the emu talons as like jewelry, but that's a little too weird for me. In every one of these situations, of course, you've got to keep in mind your situation, how much land you're using, what facilities you have already set up. In my next video, I believe I'll go into my exact setup right here that you see, and the considerations that I've needed to take as opposed to the ducks, turkeys, and chickens that we also raise here. Of course, you don't want to have an unhappy bird, especially these guys, since they cost a lot more than those other smaller ones. And, just in general, take care of whatever animals you have. To end off this episode, I'll do some agriculture trivia. Wet hay bales are a large fire hazard. This may sound strange, but if you harvest your hay, bale it up tightly, and stick it in a barn while it's over 20% moisture, it will start decomposing into compost. And once this process goes on for long enough, it'll generate a lot of heat, at which point the decomposition will boil off the water and light the hay bale on fire. So you need to constantly measure the moisture percentage of your hay as you've stored it. An additional danger, which is a nice family-friendly topic, if your hay bales are treated to prevent certain molds from appearing, certain treatments will create hydrogen cyanide gas as they burn, so extra cool there. So I think that'll be it for this episode of me showing you my emus and the kind of setup I've got. I'm glad they're a little calm today. I apologize for my last video. It was raining and all the birds were inside and it was late at night, so the quality wasn't very good. Luckily, the weather is much better right now, so I can catch them when it's nice and quiet. There's nice sunlight in here and they're behaving. So thanks for taking a look at my channel, and I'll see you next time.